This prisoner is odd. During yard time, he'd sneak closer to guards, carefully studying the shape of keys hanging at their waists. Back in his cell at night, he'd sketch key outlines from memory, redrawing patiently at even a millimeter's deviation to perfectly replicate the keys. But that wasn't all. At 3 a.m., he'd light a match to examine his cell door's lock, then tear off white paper. Placing it carefully over the lock, he'd soon capture the key's silhouette. He'd trace the shape with pencil. After this, Xiao Shuai inserted a paper roll into the lock and pressed it with pencil. After countless attempts, he calculated the lock pin depths. Yet despite perfection, he remained grim. Finding key materials proved impossible. Next day, in the showers, he confided in his cellmate. The inmate flipped his hair thoughtfully, then proposed a brilliant but dangerous plan. But this plan is extremely dangerous. Xiao Shuai had no choice but to risk it. At noon in the workshop, he sneaked with scraps, past distracted guards, stashing them in his thermos. But before reaching the door, disaster struck. Nervousness cracked Xiao Shuai's composure. A guard seized the thermos, dumped out the tea to inspect it, and shook it vigorously. But amazingly, after a thorough search, he found nothing suspicious. He had no choice but to let Xiao Shuai go. Little did he know, this small oversight would cause the prison major trouble later. Back in his cell, Xiao Shuai retrieved the hidden wood strips from the thermos. He'd planned this distraction well in advance. When the guard arrived, his cellmate fumbled a nail-filled box to draw attention, while Xiao Shuai stuffed a towel into the thermos behind their backs. That's how they narrowly avoided detection. With materials ready, Xiao Shuai began carving the wood strip, working with intense focus, his grip firm as he perfected every detail. He sanded away every splinter until the surface was glass smooth. Soon, all key components were shaped. He coated the joints with adhesive, carefully assembling the pieces. To speed up drying, he used the overhead lamp as heat source. After 2.5 hours, he extracted the wooden key, verified its solidity, and cross-checked with his blueprint. Final polishing transformed it into a flawless wooden key. Heart-pounding, Xiao Shuai crept toward the cell door, inserted the key with trembling hands, breath held, and turned it. A sharp click echoed as the lock disengaged. Xiao Shuai grinned like a sunflower in full bloom, but his joy was short-lived. He faced a more daunting challenge. It's never that simple. Behind every door lies another barrier. Xiao Shuai deflated like a punctured balloon, all hope extinguished. This thick steel door, likely a typo for Gong, stood like an insurmountable mountain. To make matters worse, the iron door's lock could only be operated from the outside. Undeterred, Xiao Shuai resolved to craft the second key first. In the following days, he seized every chance to memorize the guard's key patterns, replicating them on blueprints back in his cell at night. After a week's labor, he successfully completed the second key. To test it during work hours, he had cellmates stand lookout while guards were away. He approached the door, produced the key, and began testing it in the lock. When it jammed, he retrieved pre-hidden tools from his socks for on-site modifications. Thrillingly, after minor adjustments, the steel door unlocked successfully. But as he turned to relock it, the key inexplicably jammed in the cylinder. In his panic, a slight mishandling snapped the key in two. Terrified, he froze, just as lookouts signaled guards approaching. Everyone scrambled back to work, while Xiao Shuai frantically improvised. Digging at the lock with bare fingers, he was saved when cellmates passed tools through the bars. Seizing this lifeline, he feverishly worked the lock cylinder. Just then, guards' footsteps echoed nearby. The sound made his cellmate so nervous, he slapped his thigh in anxiety. Fortunately, just seconds before the guard arrived, Little Handsome managed to dig out all the wood chips, but the bolt remained exposed. After the guards left, Little Handsome quickly discarded his mop and rushed to the steel door. Furious, he began pounding it with his fists. After dozens of strikes, his hands became swollen and bruised, yet the bolt hadn't budged at all. With no other choice, Little Handsome had to leave it to fate. He lay on his bed with extreme unease, awaiting his judgment. Moments later, guards arrived punctually to lock the doors. Believing escape was impossible this time, the guards merely glanced at the exposed bolt, scanned the area briefly, and shut the steel door again. Little Handsome's heart pounded in his cell. After a long wait with no commotion outside, he finally sighed in relief. They'd narrowly escaped this time. Still, this couldn't shake his resolve to escape. Soon after, Little Handsome crafted another key, but now faced the challenge of operating it. He and his accomplices brainstormed solutions in their cell. Suddenly, a cellmate proposed an idea. Attach ropes to both ends of the key. Thread it through the gap and manually adjust it to insert precisely into the keyhole. Little Handsome immediately shook his head in rejection. His cellmates were baffled. If you can't turn it, totally pointless. Frustrated, they had to devise another approach. But just then, guards abruptly entered for inspection. The trio froze in panic, instantly silencing themselves and pretending to work. At that moment, the prison guard forcefully pushed open the iron door, and a sense of oppression filled the air, suddenly permeating the cell. Fortunately, the guard didn't suspect anything, glanced around briefly, and then turned to leave. After a moment, Curly stepped out the door and confirmed the guards had departed. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. But just as they were still discussing their plan, Goldie's gaze suddenly fell on the broom nearby. He then held it in his hands, examining it intently, before walking out of the room, and closed the door, then took out the broom to compare it. Meanwhile, Curly was inside, simulating the action. To their delight, the broom was just the right length to reach the lock cylinder. The challenge now was how to use it to turn the key. That day, while Handsome was working in the carpentry shop, he noticed his cellmates using the lathe's rotation as they worked, slowly shaping the wood. Suddenly, a bold idea popped into his head, so he prepared a wooden board with holes and drilled a hole in the broom's top. He fastened them with screws, attaching the key to another hole. He intended to use a pulley system to turn the key. With everything ready, Handsome eagerly began testing it in the room. He carefully inserted the key into the lock, then adjusted it to the correct angle. Then, with all his might, he turned the pulley. Through his effort, he actually managed to turn the key. Handsome was thrilled, but before he could celebrate, suddenly, footsteps sounded behind him. It turned out a guard was patrolling outside, seemingly looking in their direction. Handsome was terrified and quickly tried to remove the key from the lock. But to make matters worse, his nerves got the better of him, causing him to drop the key. Disaster struck. If discovered by the morning guards, his entire plan would be ruined. Xiao Shuai couldn't let that happen. In this critical moment, he retrieved his precious, hoarded chewing gum and began frantically chewing. Then, at the window, he strained with every fiber to extend a broomstick, now tipped with gum, toward the fallen key, hoping its stickiness would work. Success seemed imminent, but as he carefully, both key and gum tumbled back to the ground. Xiao Shuai's heart, forcing himself to stay calm. He tried again and again. The gum's stickiness wouldn't last long. He raced against the clock. Finally, after multiple attempts, he retrieved the key. With the crisis averted, Xiao Shuai sighed in relief and collapsed onto his bunk. Next morning, he shared the breakthrough with his cellmates. Hope ignited. Building on their previous success, they spent the following weeks. Each crafted piece was buried underground to evade guards during cell searches. Within a month, their full set of keys was complete. They planned a nighttime test run. Before moving, Xiao Shuai fashioned a dummy from pillows. Barefoot, he and Curly crept downstairs and began testing keys one by one. Their path to freedom required navigating 15 separate gates. This time they made 39 keys. Since each lock cylinder was unique, they had to test each one individually, marking them to save time. But just as they finished testing a gate, patrolling guards emerged, forcing the pair to hastily retreat. Going upstairs was no longer an option, so they seized the chance to hide in a downstairs locker. Desperately, the locker couldn't be locked, and its door wouldn't fully close or latch. They had no choice but to pinch the screw. It kept slipping from their fingers. To make matters worse, Curly froze in terror, not daring to move. They hid wide-eyed, barely breathing for fear of alerting the guard outside. The guard likely never imagined two prisoners had escaped, now concealed in a locker. He ambled upstairs for routine checks, as usual. Due to the guard's lax routine, he completely missed the dummy on Xiao Shuai's bed. With a cursory glance, he moved on. Meanwhile, the two quietly emerged from the locker, tiptoeing forward. Confirming no other guards, they resumed key testing. Soon they reached the final gate. But before finishing the tests, footsteps echoed upstairs. This time there were footsteps again. They realized the guard was ending his rounds, so they swiftly locked the gate and retreated to the locker. Just then, the guard reached the stairs. No doubt, he didn't even glance at the locker. After the guards left, they quickly headed upstairs. Xiao Shuai's legs shook uncontrollably with fear, but he fought it back, disassembled the key fragments, and hid them in his thermos. But the next day, 3 guards stormed into the cell at dawn. They entered silently, their eyes fixed straight ahead. An alarm had been blaring for half an hour. Xiao Shuai was still sound asleep until shaken awake, then scrambled to his feet to face their questions. He kept apologizing profusely. The guards weren't buying it, but Xiao Shuai stayed silent. Frustrated, they ordered a cell search. After scouring the room, they found nothing suspicious. Just then, a guard abruptly stopped and looked down, spotted the scattered key fragments on the floor. Xiao Shuai's heart pounded wildly as the guard picked up a piece. Barely educated, he couldn't identify it after long scrutiny. Suddenly inspired, Xiao Shuai grabbed a photo nearby, propping it upright. The guard reluctantly bought it, then gave Xiao Shuai a stern warning before leaving it off. After this close call, Xiao Shuai knew he couldn't delay any longer. The next day, he approached fellow inmates, ready to convince them all to escape together. But to his shock, not a single prisoner agreed to join him. Everyone feared the prison break might fail and dreaded the repercussions of recapture. But freedom was within reach. Xiao Shuai give up. They resolved to act tonight. Soon, guard departed after shift change, leaving the prison in silence. Xiao Shuai, he freed his two allies, then they swiftly changed into prepared civilian clothes and hurried to the exit. But as they reached for the door, muffled sounds came from below. They eased the door shut, ready to retreat if needed. Only when a noise subsided did they proceed. They crept downstairs, planning to hide in lockers during initial patrols. Inside, their lock-picking paperclip had vanished inexplicably. Xiao Shuai searched frantically to no avail. Forced to grip the mechanism manually, they expected routine success. A guard approached carrying a toilet plunger. Earlier, his toilet clogged, prompting this locker search for the plunger. Rising, he accidentally dislodged the paperclip, a detail he dismissed. Now he returned the plunger pre-patrol. But at the doorway, inmates upstairs began shouting in protest. Meanwhile, the trio inside the locker strained to remain silent. The locker door shuddered visibly. At this critical moment, the guard grew annoyed by the deliberate commotion, dropped the plunger, and headed upstairs. They headed upstairs. Finally, the trio narrowly avoided capture. Not daring to waste a second, they dashed out and expertly unlocked one iron gate after another. Soon they reached the final barrier. And to their astonishment, the outer gate stood. They embraced tightly, celebrating their impending freedom, suppressing their elation. They swiftly donned shoes and jackets before opening the last door, but stepping outside, they froze in terror. An armed guard patrolled the wall above. Thankfully, they were prepared. Using a small mirror to monitor the guard, they waited until he turned away before darting toward the exit. One by one, they reached the main gate. Repeating the tactic, they emerged onto the street. Their hearts still raced with tension. As they walked silently, heads bowed, only when passing guards failed to recognize them did they finally exhale in relief. Like wild horses freed from reins, they raced unimpeded to the train station, hailed a cab, and ordered the driver straight to the border. Next morning, guards unlocked cells as usual, rousing prisoners for roll call. When Xiao Shuai's group didn't stir, guards entered and gaped in horror. No Xiao Shuai in bed, just a crudely made dummy. The guards couldn't fathom how. A full-grown man had vanished into thin air. But as realization dawned, it was too late. The trio had already crossed the border by car.